Good morning. My name is Shelley Covert. I'm the Tribal Council Secretary as well as the spokesperson for the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan Tribe. Talk about, a centennial dam. What does that mean for all of us living here today? The people on the Bear River who the dam threatens to inundate their actual homes. They may actually be removed from eminent domain, their properties taken. What does it mean for the cultural sites that would be inundated under the new reservoir? So one of the things I thought in my own lifetime, and I used to think it was a bit of a conspiracy. I did not understand why all of our burning grounds, our burial sites, our town sites seemed to lay under Collins, Rollins, Lake Wildwood, Bullards. There are sites and actual living memory within the tribal community, remembering and knowing those places that were inundated, like the people, some of the old timers here in Nevada County who very proudly, say they're 5 generations from here. They may remember the building of all those dams as well. But I think what's really unique with our tribal family is that what lives in the tribal memory is the time before all of that. None of us were living when the gold rush happened, but within our tribe, people remember what it was like because my third great grandfather, your third great grandfather, our people were alive and they told the stories to their children. And many of those stories are unfortunately wrought with a whole bunch of pain. It's a very sad thing when you talk about dams and what is under those lakes and those waters, or the fake lakes. I guess I shouldn't even, give them the distinction of calling, it's not Lake Tahoe. These are, fake reservoir, thank you, fake lake reservoir, reservoirs. So today I asked, I wanted to put together sort of a panel discussion, and we're not really set up, with the table and chairs as a panel discussion, but I asked some people, again, kind of at the last minute, if they would come and let's talk about this. I would love to see a community dialogue happen. We don't want to see that pain happen to an entire new generation of people. Why is yet another place going to be drowned or inundated or buried beneath, tons and tons of water? Also, what's most important, I believe, to a lot of us is that those burning grounds have, the souls and spirits and the ashes of our ancestors. And I was talking to one of the filmmakers, and he was, trying to make this a marketable, how do we talk about this? How do we get people on fire for this topic? And he said, is saying grave water really too gross? And I said, that's pretty gross, but you know what? It's true. It's true. My grandpa Dutch told me not to swim in Lake Wildwood. He said, you don't swim there. That's, our people are under that. You just don't swim there. And he also told me that, is it Gold Creek, the one that dumps into Deer Creek? When I was in high school, my friend lived right there, and we were going to go swimming in it, and he said, that's one of the dirtiest creeks here. You don't swim in that water. So he had this living memory of stuff that I think we've all kind of forgotten. So with my panel guests that I have today, and I don't know if we want to sort of separate ourselves and have everybody sit up and pass the mic and just converse about some of these things. So I have Judith Lowry, and she is a local artist, very famous. She hates it when I say that, but she's a very famous contemporary Native American artist. I'm sorry, but it's true. She lives locally here in Nevada City. She's also Mountain Maidu and Pit River Native American. And then I have Wanda Batchelor and Rose Kelly. And these are descendants of Chief Lewis Kelly, who was our last officially appointed leader in the tribe here in Nevada City. And you guys may be familiar with Chief Kelly Road and the Chief Kelly little housing thing up on the hill. These are descendants of Chief Kelly. And I have Dr. Tanis Thorne, who is professor and was the head of the Native American department at UC Irvine, and also taught at UCLA, and also lives here in Nevada City locally. And when I found Tanis, she had written literally like this little tiny booklet. It was very small. So impactful for our people. She had written about the Campoodie, which was our recognized reservation up here. There it is, in all its glory, with Chief Cully on the front, not to be confused with Chief Kelly or Chief Tully. Chief Cully was very... but we had found her booklet, and it's still emotional for me. Somebody out there in the real world, academic world, knew about us, knew our history, knew our family names, and it was really something else. And we ended up getting in touch with Tanis, and I think I emailed you or something, and that's all history. Judith then had hooked us up with some of the people that she knew. Susan Hanks, who works for the state library and is the tribal liaison in the state library system. Dr. Sherry Tash, who is our linguist friend, who's an expert in the Nisenan language and also heavily, again, she hates it when I say that she's an expert in Nisenan ethnology, but she really is. She knows our family. She's part of our family now. These people who have, they saw us, and then we just kind of sucked them in, and now you can't, it's hard to get in the tribe, but once you get in, you can't get out, so. But today I thought we could talk and share what does it mean to have these places inundated? What is the history and the legacy of the water being completely changed and moved? This is a water system that we inherited, and just because it's this way does not mean it needs to keep being this way. Caleb, we were sitting, I think it was maybe one of the Foothill Water Network meetings, or I can't remember what it was, but one of the panel people had shown a slide of all of the changes, the diversions on our water systems, the dams, I'd never seen it. And to have a slide showing the diversions everywhere where things are stopped, and it was just, it changed my life. I had never seen it. I'd heard my grandpa say, this isn't the way things should be. But it was way beyond his comprehension and ability to give a solution. Well, it shouldn't be like this, but what are you gonna do? So, but I thought if we could engage in conversation about these things, and I want to hear from you guys, because you, just as well as I, know kind of who's under those waters. We know those people, those families. And Judith, I was hoping maybe you would start by sharing the story of, was it your dad who broke his leg? Oh, it was my grandfather. Her grandfather. So just, yeah. So let's let Judith, so this is Judith Lowry, so if we could welcome her, and let's just.
So while Shelley's inviting the Prouts in, they're Nisenan from another area, and what's really been great is to see how the Nisenan communities in the last few years have started to connect back together and create the nation that they once were before they got all busted up. And we're doing that all over California, working with our communities and making things better for everybody. My people come from Indian Valley, it's Greenville, Northern California, and that's on my Mighty side. My Pit River people are from what is known as Hat Creek. They're at Sigawee, and then over on the Alturas side, my great-grandma was also Modoc, and we suspect some Paiute too, just looking at her, So my great-grandfather, John Lowry, had married my great-grandmother, who was full-blooded. Her name was Julia Washoe Lowry, and she claimed that name because her mother had been a slave and had slave children prior to her mother being purchased by a Washoe man. So she's making it very clear with the use of that last name that she took for herself that she's not a slave. So she met a little pioneer guy who actually rode with Kit Carson and actually had been an Indian killer. It was his job to scout on the Applegate Trail and the Noble Trail, but he met a tall Indian girl up in Greenville at a big time. She won a foot race. She was 15. He courted her, paid for her with a pair of boots and $15, which was righteous bucks in those days. That was no little piece of chicken. And they had a very long and happy life together, and one of their sons was my grandfather, Robert Lowry, and he broke his arm as a young man riding across Big Valley, which is now inundated by Lake Almanor. And my dad used to say, what used to be the home of the Maidu is now the playground of the rich, because, you know, Maidu has some pretty good real estate there. I mean, the Maidu lands do now. And so, you know, trying to explain to people the emotional toll that this takes. We know we're sorting out what's happening to the environment. Up in our lands, the Feather River has been dammed so many times. It's called the staircase of energy, I think, or the staircase of power. I think it has something like from one dam to the last dam, it's something like 4,500 foot drop. So when the engineers saw that, they were ready to dam all of that up. And that supplies power. The Yubas come off of the Feather. And there's just so many dams. And to me, looking back at our people who didn't dam, the idea about water was conservation. So to me, that's the force behind using all that water. And you know, we all have one of these, right? Or most of us do, even children, and we expect this thing to be charged all the time for us. And that's just one of the many expectations we have of our water. This uses water. So, but on the side of the emotional toll, seeing your homelands flooded, right, New Orleans, perfect example of a critical flooding of a homeland for a lot of people down there. Now, I mean, more and more as Hurricane Sandy, I mean, and the Delta, our own Sacramento Delta, you know, we're at kind of a critical point. But there's also the human toll, and the poet Deborah Miranda's, she's Esalen Chumash. Her tribal people come from the Central Coast around Monterey to Santa Barbara. And she is one of the finest Native American poets that we have writing today. And I'd love to have her here someday, and she actually expressed interest when I saw her at the Berkeley conferences last year, so it'd be great to have her, and I know 2 other poets I'd love to have come here. But she wrote this poem called Indian Cartography about the inundation of native lands. Deborah Miranda. My father opens a map of California, traces mountain ranges, rivers, county borders, like family bloodlines. Tuolumne, Salinas, Los Angeles, Paso Robles, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Satacoy, Tehachapi, places he was happy or where tragedy greeted him like an old unpleasant relative. A small blue spot marks Lake Cachuma, created when they dammed the San Ynez, flooded a valley, divided my father's boyhood. Days he learned to swim the hard way, and days he walked across the silver scales and swollen bellies of salmon coming back to a river that wasn't there. The government paid those Indians to move away, he said. I don't know where they went. In my father's dreams, after the solace of a six-pack, he follows a longing, a deepness, when he comes to the valley drowned by a displaced river. He swims out, floats on his face, with eyes open, looks down into lands not drawn on any map. Maybe he sees shadows of a people who are fluid, fluent in dark water, bodies with long and glinting, sharp-edged jewelry, and mouths still opening, closing on the stories of our home. Thank you.
Wow. My heart. That was beautiful. Thank you, Judith. We also have stories, everything I know with our oral tribal history. Most of these places I haven't been with my feet. I know them in my head because I heard them spoken about my whole life. And my grandpa used to talk about the old people, the old families, and he told me a story about old man Dick Childs. And the story takes place at a place that's now, it's right where the Lake Wildwood Reservoir is, where the dam, the dam is. And it's a great story. My grandpa had a little cabin there, and I guess the people moved, and it's not a great migration. Like, we're not, moving from here to Seattle, but we're moving from Nevada City to Lake Wildwood to Colfax to Meadow Vista. Like Rosa had told me, our people were always together. And we moved together. It's like the true essence of a tribe, what a tribe is. The people were always together. And so these stories are about our tribal people and how they moved together. So the story is that Old Man Childs, he sounded like a real old, very strict traditionalist. They were at the little cabins there, and in the middle of the night, they heard him packing up his stuff real fast. And they said, "Hey," my grandpa said to him, "Hey, where are you going?" And a coyote had come and howled in one of the cabins 3 times. And he said, "That's bad medicine, I'm out of here." And he left, and the next morning, a child that lived there passed away. And but that story happened. There was a place there, and now that's underwater. I mean, that's really significant. It would be like if they flooded, Nevada City, and we all sat here and told stories about downtown. I mean, it would be heart-wrenching, and I hate to see another generation have to go through that. Another thing of great significance and great parallel for me with the centennial is Bullard's Bar Dam. And strangely, my family on my native side had worked on every incarnation of the Colgate powerhouse. So from the first time it was built, my grandpa talked about how they would move people, because it's so steep out there, how they would move people and they would ride in these little buckets on these, sounds like a really intense zip line experience. They'd ride from the top of the hill down. And Grandma Carmel, his wife, he got in big trouble because he was taking the little girls, Aunt Bertie was probably 2 or 3, and letting them ride in that, and she said it was, she called it a death trap. So, but he was letting the girls ride in that with him. But they, with their physical ability to scale those places, they were also very instrumental when PG&E started there with the hydraulic plant, putting in the first power lines in those steep canyons. So there's this, and then on my non-native side, on my covert side, and the native side, they also were part building Bullards. They were physically out there building Bullard's Bar Dam. And my grandfather Dutch on my native side, Francis Dutch Rose, or Francis Harry Rose, and then he went by Dutch. He was always, I don't know if it was a point of shame, but he didn't go in the armed forces because he worked for PG&E, and they kept him at the dam to protect it, I guess. In a time of war, it was a very important resource for America. And so he always had his card that he was there to show people that he was kept out of the armed forces because of that reason. But at the first building of Bullard's, the universities came in and excavated the burial or the burning sites. And I've heard rumor, that they're in Sac State still today. And for me, it's always somebody else's people or somebody else's tribe that are in file cabinet somewhere in some museum or some university. It's a horrific thing. And then to hear, that we have our people from Bullard's are there is really tragic. And because we're not a federally recognized tribe, we cannot participate in NAGPRA. So that's a whole nother story. But it goes hand in hand with the reason they excavated is because the dam was coming. And they wanted to, do their research and do what they had to do. I would hate to see that happen again. What are they going to do with those people? What about all the animal species that rely on that place? What about the flowing, rushing water that we still use today? And my Prout friends have come here in the back, and I hope that they'll say just a little piece that we still have tribal members who are participating in an unbroken chain of cultural respects. And, you go down, you get your medicine there at the water, and if that stretch of wild river is gone, what does that mean? What does that further do? Somebody had said in one of the films yesterday that our watersheds are still recovering from the gold rush, and it is most certainly true for our people. We're not close to recovering. From the sense that we were extremely wealthy here in our resources, we had language, we had an economic system, we have a serious social system that's still in place, alive and well within the tribal families. I think that, your checks and balances, but the rest of it has been decimated, and we're holding on with both hands, and we're saying, hey, we're still here. And Wanda is, she was chairwoman for the Washoe, because she's also part Washoe. But I used to be so much more meek and timid than I am, And Wanda she looked at me and she said, oh, it makes me emotional. She said, this is your birthright. You put your chin up. You are from here. This is your place. Thank you. And I just want you to know, Wanda, I hold that in my heart all the time when I'm always freaking out about everything, because I angst out really bad. Oh no. And then this is my birthright. So, but would you like to speak next? Could you just talk to us about, all this stuff? Oh, so much.
Homakani. Good morning, everybody. I'm Wanda Rose, Enos Bachelor. I am Nisinan from here. I am the only great-granddaughter of Chief Laluk Lewis Kelly and his wife, Naomi Wallace Kelly. And my mother, Rose Enos, we need to acknowledge here, was born and raised here on American Hill and raised by her grandparents. So we're very fortunate because I'm Nisinan, but I'm also Washoe, as Shelley has stated. My grandmothers are Washoe and my grandfathers are Nisinan. So I'd always ask, well, what happened? You got to go way over there to find your other half, or what happened? They said, yeah, that's what they had to do because Washoe tribe is really small. And I was the former chairwoman of the Washoe tribe in Nevada and California, which is the Lake Tahoe is our Aboriginal homelands over there. And I was the first woman ever elected. But after 22 years, I said, I'm done. I wanted to recognize Sherry Tatch, as well as Tanis, and our good friend here, our good relative, Judith. We're at this cusp of where we're all coming back together, as Shelley had stated earlier, coming back to our homelands, finding our voice, speaking our truth, and becoming a good collaborative partner with everyone else who's on that path of really being awakened about water is life and the quality of our life and how we all interwork with each other in the extent that we want to do what's good and true and correct for not only our ancestors, but those that are yet to come and our young people that are looking to us. And it's hard, delicate balance. And I always try to say this, as an Indigenous person from our homelands here, to impart that with our young people who are kind of in the mainstream. And so you got to walk and balance in the red world. You got to walk and balance in the white world too. And it's a tough balance, especially with all the electronics and the media and stuff that we have. When we were growing up, our greatest pleasure was going to the Bonanza store and say, we're the Kelly grandkids and we're here to charge. And riding down Broad Street on our little our bicycles and using our kids' tennis shoes for brakes before we hit the water down here. But that was our thrill, coming up here in the summertime and staying with our grandparents. And At that time, that having all that history with them and their language and the customs and traditions that we still carry today. In fact, I want to recognize Shewa Peck and her sister, as well as Sarah, who are part of our extended family too, as well as, all by yourself back there? Oh, I see Clyde too. Okay. As well as Stephen and Clyde Prout. We're all extended family. My grandmother, Naomi Wallace Kelly, Chief Law Lewis Kelly, was my great-grandmother, and who raised my mom, is also extension of that family too. So we're all kind of interrelated. But we all are related in the sense that we want to preserve and protect what little we have. We kind of look at the world now, and things are changing quickly. Things are changing on the Hill too. But, we only can work with what we can, and everyone can affect positive change. It just takes that good mindset, and we all have good hearts, because that's why we're here. We're here to listen, to educate, but more importantly is to unite and to work those collaborative efforts together to protect what little we have left. My goodness, you look around, and, it's true about the histories, about the reservoirs and stuff, and, a lot of our people are there. And I used to be a former state park ranger with the state of California, first full-blooded ever on board. But one time I took the museum and collections training because I wanted to go and do this, I thought. I went to the West Terminal of the State California Museum Archives. And so I was going to do museum and artifacts because I was working on a project at Lake Paris. And so I was bebopping around looking at the baskets and oohing and ahhing, and I said, "What's in these drawers?" And I opened one up. There was bones in there. And I said, "I'm out of here." And so I called my supervisor. I said, "I can't work in this place that has, who knows, probably my ancestors' bones in these drawers." They had never been repatriated. And it just blew my mind that the indifference of human bones in a drawer. Drawers of human bones. And so that was my short-lived life as a museum artifact collection person, because I didn't want to do that. Oh goodness, this was back in the 80s. Probably things have changed, but I was very adamant and wrote a letter and everything to the powers to be. Is like, oh, this is my perspective. But I wanted to kind of step back a little bit, and I'm going to say some things in Nisinan. Again, part of us that we're the Maidu dancers and traditionalists, and we have been carrying on our culture and our traditions since the 1970s, when we were young. And we still carry it today. In fact, we have 6 generations of Lewis Kelly on the dance floor now, and everyone sings and dances, as well as extended family members. And so when we're all at a big gathering or big time together and with extended family, and we're about 35 strong, so that's great to have that on the dance floor as singers and dancers and stuff. Still carrying that oral history forward, still doing the regalia, and as well as our famous basket weaver we have over here. So all those things are coming back or reawakening, but we're always challenged with having access to basket tree materials, medicinal plants, and the no trespassing signs and those type of things. But you do what you have to do, because again, it's educating people. But I want to say a few things in Nisinan, my language, from here, and then I'm going to translate. Winam udau niska kawadi, welcome to our land. Nisinan nimne, I am Nisinan. Hede Nisinan kawi, this is Nisinan country. Nisinan ke humwa wadok dot not Kampachukapakan. I'm going to get it yet. Our family is from Cement Hill and the Clipper Gap area near Meadow Vista. Hedem Kawi, Hedem Nisika, Humpun Kawi. This land here is our ancestral homelands. Nisinam Humak Kelly Enos Wallace, Yapem Mose. Our family is called Hoyam Kawi Nisimnam Huwak Iskin Kumam. In ancient times, our family lived in Camp Pudi, Nisimnam Hawak, Ista, Grass Valley, Auburn, now Carson City and Reno. So our family is spread out because I live over there in Nevada. I will be coming home someday soon. Nisinam, wenamne, I feel good. And when we use our language, that is who we are. That's our connection back to the land. That's honoring our ancestors, our culture, our song, and our dance, and the way we do things for the seasons and stuff. That's, again, honoring our people. But it's also a prayer for Mother Earth, which all of us dwell on. And it's an opportunity for us to give back and give thanks, because someday Mother Earth's going to get mad at us, and I think we're going to go kapoof. And we're going to start all over again. But we want a good quality of life. We want clean water. We want to be able to carry on all those honorings of the past. But more importantly is that we come from strong family, as I tell my cousin all the time. Their wish, as my grandma, I'm also the great-granddaughter of Lizzie Enos, too. And she's from the Auburn area, and she was a great basket weaver. So come from strong stock. And so we're doing what we're supposed to do, which is true and correct. And the morally and ethical thing is to keep educating people. And I guess that's what I'm charged with, because my brothers go, go up there and talk, sister. We don't want to go. Mom says, you go ahead and talk. I don't want to talk. I love to talk. But I'll talk all day. But again, I'm glad that a lot of people came here today, and also the extended family here, because, we know in our hearts of hearts that we have to all work together, and we have to honor each other. There's all kinds of differences and different perceptions and stuff, but a lot of it is that the common thread that holds us all together is doing what's true and correct to the best of our ability for our land and our water and our poor animals, and to each other, too. And so I just wanted to share that with you. Also, kind of a highlight and a side note, my grandmother, Lizzie Enos, back in the 1960s, UC Berkeley students used to come up in the summertime, and my brothers and I and our cousins, we would see that yellow school bus come to our house over there at Chuquipacande, which is Clipper Gap area outside of Meta Vista. And they'd come in the summertime in that bus, and so we always knew that on that bus was a whole bunch of brown sack lunches. And so we go there and raid them all the time. And so there we do have some tapes and stuff that we got from UC Berkeley that has, all of us kids up there talking, and my grandma's like, okay, go play, go play. But I think way back then, our people did not like to be recorded or have pictures taken in that sense, because that's not how they believed. But there was a reason why these tapes, these wax cylinders, and all the recordings and the stories were kept, because she was hoping someday one of us would speak. And we are. We're bringing back the language. My mom and I are kind of doing a master apprentice program, because my mom knew the Nisenan language that was spoken by her grandparents who raised her. And so I know my cousin Stephen over there also, the Prout family, is doing their part. So once we bring the language back and we get comfortable with it, because it's sleeping, and we've heard it when we're younger, but we're awakening it. And that's the power. That's the power, because now we're full circle. Culture, tradition, language all goes hand in hand. But my grandmother, back in the 1960s, there was a short film called Processing the Buckeye, and my grandmother was doing it at the Bear River, where she would go for her medicinal plants, her basketry items, as well as going down there and doing demonstrations so that it would live on. So I happened to someone sent it to me, and I saw it, and I went, wow. And then I remember my grandmother. I had my grandma Lizzie until I was about 14. And so I remember those things, and I remember her doing acorn and all those. But as a young person, you didn't pay attention. I was busy, just go flittering around, going doing something else, because I always thought in the back of my mind that would always be there. And then when it was gone, I was like, I should have had a V8, but it was just, at that moment. But once you heard the language, once you heard the enunciation and how the emphasis was on it, it comes back. And so it is coming back. And so now that we've kind of had the opportunity to work with our linguists more often, we're recording it and we're sharing it with the young people through iPods, because that's all they get, or iPads. So that's, you got to strike them. But I wanted to share that with you, that Samuel Barrett did that short little clip on my grandmother at the Bear River, and so it's still available. And, you know, my grandmother Lizzie was an awesome ethnobotanist, as well as most indigenous people here. You had to know what kind of medicines to eat, what kind of foods to eat. She'd tell us what kind of mushrooms, and she said, don't eat those, you could eat those white mushrooms that have the little brown spots on top, but don't eat those ones that are lime green. And so us kids would pick them up and throw them at each other because they're poisonous. You know, and so you learned that, you know, manzanita cider and all those type of things. But that was all the history that, you know, and the lessons that were passed down, you know. And so today when I stand here in front of you, you know, it's my opportunity to acknowledge that, as well as to honor my ancestors. And that will be my lifelong thing that I do now that I've retired from politics. 22 years is too much. But I wanted to open it up to my other relatives to be able to come up and speak about the significance of you know, the dams as we talk about and stuff, you know. And, you know, I guess it's an opportunity to also step back and think about, is this really what we need to be doing? You know, what is really real anymore? And, you know, we talk about conservation, preservation. You know, I've been very, very active with regards to Lake Tahoe and those type of things. But, you know, that is a sacred lake, but it is what it is, and you just got to work with what you can. And then, you know, appropriations and stuff like that. But, you know, the impacts even to this little small community, you know, our little Bear River, our Yuba River, American River, you know, all these things we kind of look at and go, what are we really doing? But then again, those that are elected officials that should be listening to the will of the people, how come they're not listening? You know, and it is a double-edged sword sometimes. But with that, you know, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share a few things, and I'll let it open to everybody else. Certainly. Question. Did you have a question? Yes.
You mentioned the Cement Hill area
Yes.
earlier,
Uh-huh.
and I was just wondering if that huge round boulder right there at the beginning of Cement Hill Road has some significance in the native culture.
Is that the one?
Right by the,
Grinding
Grandma
Rocks?
said that was the big medicine rock. They called that
Yeah.
one the big one, and then the little one.
I was just referring to my mom because she was born there. She says, yes, it is a sacred place, just like that other little rock over there.
It's a healing rock.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting to come apart, pieces of it. I don't know if people are taking it apart or if it's just.
Because we're not healing, eh? Yeah, Mother says it's a sacred place. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your talk.
Certainly.
I was thinking that with your experience in politics, how do you think the local community as well as the local Native American community can organize politically, and especially at this point, which is relatively early in the EIR process, you know, what is the way to be most effective from your experience?
I think that having this kind of meeting, but also media, as well as doing a public relation, I have a public relations background, doing a PR push, and a lot of it is to be seen and to be heard, and having the opportunity to be invited. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to educate. But there's a whole bunch of strategies that can be done, and I keep sharing with Shelley that, you know, well, I'll get to it, but, you know, it's like, you know, what are the things, you know, I'm working on things over there, then over here, and then, but now it's an opportunity to be able to strategize and to say, okay, what are priorities? Because now I'm more concentrating back over here. And so that'll be where my concentration will be. But I'm here to help and assist any way I can. But a lot of it is the true local indigenous people, which are the Nevada City people, or the families. And I must say for a fact that Chiakum and Don Ryberg is no relation to my grandfather, Lewis Kelly, or no affiliation, and that must be stated as a fact. And so Chiakum's homeland is over there in the Greenville area, up that way, over in Plumas County. This is Nevada County. So Placer, Nevada, El Dorado are Nisinan country. And so I think educating people. But, you know, as an indigenous person too, you know, we know we're from here. We know what we're about. You know, this is our homelands. But we haven't been very vocal. And in some Native communities, you're not vocal, you know. But sometimes I think you need to probably say, all right, take off that, you know, the gloves and say, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to organize, now it's time to educate and to be able to do those things, and we have to. Okay, ma'am.
With language
Yes.
and words comes a lot of power.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if there is a place name in the Nisenan language for this area of the Centennial Dam. And if we could start using that and using that as a tool to educate all of us
Mhm.
of its legitimacy and
Mhm.
import.
Exactly.
So what is the name? Do you know? Or can we
I can say what Bear and River is, but I would want to know, and I have to do more research in regards to what is the name of the Bear River. Because there's probably different areas, because where I always was, our playground was Dog Bar, and those areas where we were as younger people. But I would have to look at that, but I think that's a great idea too. And then also having a little thing about, this would be in the indigenous area, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's a good opportunity to do those things. And we will be at the future meetings. It is time. There's a question back there? Yes, ma'am.
I came in a little late, so this might have been already answered, but I was just curious for the indigenous people that live in Nevada County, what are the numbers now that you have here?
I know from my family, the Enos family, we're 28. From Chief Lewis Kelly, the Kelly family, my mom is Rose Kelly Enos, born and raised here born and raised, Mom? Camp Pooty? Or? Yeah, she was born and raised at Camp Pooty, the original settlement. So we're 28 strong in our little family. Shelley, how many years?
We were 34, but we lost quite a few people in the last 2 years.
Maybe
So I
30?
think, yeah, 30. And then the Johnson Kelly family, they're actually pretty big. The
Yeah.
Johnson family.
Yeah. Prout family, you're probably about 150, huh? 80. So you probably have about 200 plus that are from here. But as I said, it's a fine line, we're not raised to speak out that we're an indigenous people and hail to us or whatever those type of things are. It's more about we know who we are, we know where we come from kind of thing. But I think because of what's kind of happening in the world, you find your voice, speak your truth, as I always keep saying. And so it is time, it should have happened many, many years ago. But there's always a time and a place for everything, so. Yes, dear.
Well, sure, California Heritage Indigenous Research Project is the nonprofit foundation now that works for the betterment of the Nisenan people. And for the last 9 years, it's been in the business of unearthing the history of these people out of your very own archives. The question becomes, how did this happen? How did people that still live here become so invisible? And what I've concluded over time is not only what Wanda says, and don't brag about themselves or talk, in fact, probably steering clear of the public was very wise for them one time. I know this from my own family history. And keeping to yourself, and you'll often hear non-Indian people say just Indians are so clannish. Well, there's reason for that. It was very dangerous here at one time for everybody. But also, this is a place that celebrates the gold rush because it created the 8th largest economy in the world, and it's our state. We're proud of that. And we have never found a way to craft a language around what happened, the dynamics of the gold rush and these people, that is sort of absolves this current crop of citizens of the guild. There's a lot of people that want to take that on, like I'm so guilty for what happened to the Indians, and we're saying, you didn't do anything, you're not guilty of anything unless you do it again. In other words, if you don't understand them, if you don't learn about them. And it shocks me how many people were born and raised here, can cite 4 or 5 generations here, and still don't know who they are. So this was a collapse, I would call it, a sort of a failure in some ways of the educational system, the library system, the museum system, and then the whole system of suppression that caused the Nisenan to withdraw. So what's been really, really wonderful is finding these treasures in our archives, these stories, these connections, and pulling the record together with the stories of these families and painting this vibrant picture and seeing them now as a living culture and not an extinct culture. So I would ask you all, if you care about them, to help, you know, in any little way you can, because it's not like we're asking for you to look for absolution, just helping, doing the right thing, and preserving the full history of this place, because unless you know all of it, good, bad, and ugly, you don't know it. And you haven't really, I think, earned your place here. And I mean, I'm Maidu from the north. And the first thing I did on my father's instruction was try to find out who this is what led to this whole thing. Honoring my dad's wish to find out if there were any friends from boarding school here, or maybe that he served in the military, who were the families. And I didn't know that he already knew Rose. And the day that I was at the Miners Foundry in 2004, and Rose was in there cracking her acorns, and I went over and sat with her and said, Rose, you lived out in Clipper Gap. You know, you know the families. You know who are the families of this area. And she sat straight up and said, Lewis Keller was my grandfather. And even I didn't know. You understand? I mean, it was so obscure. So that's over. They're coming out. This party starts.
Great, that's great. You know, and maybe you probably thought of this is, you know, with our farmers market that we have during the summer, and if there was more of a visual of your culture there, either, you know, little bits of history or that kind of thing, I think it would be a great educational tool for our community.
I think, yeah, also looking for, you know, I appreciate that, you know, having the invite to come at the table. A wise tribal leader told me, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so I think, you know, having that kind of information in a living history, you know, we're still here, we're not going anywhere. But I think that, again, having that collaborative partnership too will work wonders. And so Sherry's kind of the point of Sherry, sorry, I'm thinking about Sherry Tatcha. But Shelley is kind of the point of contact, but I'll share my information. My email is warriorwoman@charter.net. So if anyone wants to email me with ideas or thoughts or feedback, I will respond. I'm not going to give up my cell number because I get slammed as it is. But, you know, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a new year, 2017. We're up for the challenge, and I think it's an opportunity to really get out there and educate people. And it's a win-win for everyone, because it's an opportunity for us to share our history and our culture and our traditions and our language, but it's also an opportunity to kind of heal. There is a lot of history that's not so good, but it is history. And there comes a place where you recognize history, and a time when you develop the strategy and you move forward. And that's where we're at. So again, thank you, and I want to open it up to my other relatives.
Who's coming? Clyde? So my next guest speaker is Clyde Prout III. And these folks who came, another thing that I wanted to touch on that Wanda said real quick, I'm sorry. We have in Nevada City Rancheria tribal membership, we have about 100, we had 160, we're down to 152 tribal members. And so these folks here are Nisenan, but they are on the Colfax side. So there was a completely different family hierarchy, family grouping, different governance. They had different headmen, they had different roundhouse, they had different holy people than we did on this side. There was a strict political divide, still Nisenan country. There are borders, as well as when you get down below the Bear River served as a very loose territorial boundary for the three of us, for the Colfax side, for our side, and then for the people who are now called the United Auburn Indian Community. But these were three Nisenan completely separate governmental Nisenan people. And so, when we're talking about our numbers, because they associate on the Colfax side, I have these different number sets in my head. We have the large number of, we probably should count how many, that's a great question. How many of us are there? I don't know. I mean, I know how many is in Nevada City Rancheria tribal membership, but as far as us as a whole, that's a really good question. And we probably should write it down somewhere, something. So, but to get Clyde and Steve Prout to come, these Rose and Wanda here, very traditional people. Clyde and Steve, very traditional people. I see Shaiwea back there. Hi, Shaiwea. I didn't see you come in. It's so nice to see you. But getting them to come speak is a big deal, so you have to pull them. But so please come and just say whatever you want about this very important subject.
Good morning. I'm not a big public speaker. That's just how I've been all my life, but I'm going to go with what I got. Just speaking on this subject in general and hearing Shelley and Wanda both speak, trying to think. It's reminiscent of what I was taught and how I was brought up, like how Wanda was speaking about how Judith and Wanda were speaking about how people don't speak about things. Like that's what my grandmother taught me, and that's kind of still how I am, is to preserve it with our families. And just kind of a lot of traditions and culture was lost, and especially with my grandmother herself. She went to the Indian boarding school, Stewart, in Nevada, and at 5 years old, she had to teach herself English. I might tear up a little bit, but she had to teach herself English at 5 years old, and she tried to speak her own language. Her mouth was washed out with soap, and she was stripped from her family, taken from her family. Her sister, Bertha, went with her, but her sister ran away, and my grandmother had to stay. And she was being told that her language wasn't right. Her traditions weren't right, that she wasn't supposed to do that. It's hard for me, sorry. Because actually hearing that story from my grandmother for the first time, it made me cry. It made my cousins, who are big, tough guys, they cried like babies to hear everything that she went through. And what little we have left is, in Colfax, what we have left is our cemetery, which we're still fighting for that, and we're also still, the river itself now, that's pretty much all we have left. My grandmother told me stories about our family being on the river, how they fought on the river, how we gathered, how you would do traditions, how you would do things. I mean, we still try to bless our babies in that river. We still try to take care of them and get our medicines from the river, our materials, our medicines. And to be kind of seeing that it could potentially be gone, what we have left, it's heartbreaking. It's like Colfax is our home. Like from Placer County and Nevada County, it's all one big place, but Colfax is home to us. For my family, we've been there. I'm the 7th generation actual documented Prout, but I'm also extended from the Gilbert family, which my grandmother and her sister were the last of the Gilberts. And like Wanda said, having that blood and stock in your veins is a lot. And I remember my grandmother telling me before she passed away that you're strong, you'll be okay. I know you'll be okay, sorry. But my grandmother, to see that in me, gives me the courage to speak in front of people and tell so much of my story. Sorry. But when I speak from my heart, because these things mean something to me. And to know that it could potentially be gone breaks my heart. And to know that history could be gone. We have so little that it's hard to see things disappear. Like slowly our people pass away, and they hope that things will be okay, and I'm still trying to fight. And yeah. Yeah.
You should talk about the burning ground that would be inundated. I mean, what does that mean to you as a person from there, that your burning ground might be underwater?
Let me get some water.
They're behind you, right?
Okay, yeah, let me get some water.
Yeah. quiet's drinking. So we're a cremating society. The Nisenan people were traditionally a cremating society. And so we have burning grounds where the burning would actually take place, and there's huge ceremony, and we're ancient culture that has been doing this for so long. So there, we would have cries. We would have the burn, and then the people would come and you would cry with this elaborate burning ceremony where we put all their belongings on these poles, and the families would come, and there's huge protocol around who speaks first, who cries, when the things are put in the flames, how long it lasts, when you stop crying, all very, very, very filled with protocol. And then we would have a cry where you would come back the next year and you would unearth the remains that survived the burn, and you would cry over them. And the women in our tribe, I've seen us referred to as tar heads, because we would take the ashes from the fire and mix it with pine pitch, and we wore it. We'd burn our hair off with a coal all the way to the head, and then cover your shoulders and your breast area and your head, and the face of your children, of the people immediate family of who has passed. And so those burning grounds, some of them, ours on Cement Hill is a burning ground. We actually, Jill Harvey, Mountain Maidu friend, saved our burning ground. They fenced an acre of it, but I'm sure it's much bigger than that, because I know it's not one square perfect rectangle of the burning ground. But these places are very, very, very old, and they're not, we don't have headstones and tombstones, and you can't identify them readily. Where'd you go? Oh, you're over there. You can't identify them by sight readily. So, and then every 7 years there would be, or every 5 years there would be the big cry, and people would come from even larger place and come and cry for all those who had been lost in the past. So when we're talking about, I think if it was the Catholic cemetery or whoever's cemetery, I don't want to pick on Catholics or anything, but if it was, with the big monuments that you could see, everybody, I think it would be easier to say, you can't flood that. But please talk about how does that make you feel?
Hi, I'm back. But those places are sacred to us because they're what we have left. We can't practice as much as we do. We still practice in the way that we can. And to have those places be gone, and that's the impact, those places over there will be impacted directly. And to lose those, that's detrimental to us. That's taking away who we are. That's taking away our traditions and our cultures that we barely have left, that we're fighting to keep going. Yeah, I'm trying. Any more questions? Sorry, I got a little choked up. Yeah.
But I was thinking in my own life about making pilgrimages to certain places and what a heart opening experience that is. And is that part of visiting? Do you go and visit the burning grounds?
All the places that I've talked about or even have mentioned, it's like those places have been my life, my childhood, how I've grown up. My family's always done things places, and even when I was a little kid, I didn't really understand. Or we'd go places and I'd be like, I don't want to go here, this is boring. but it was important. My father used to be like, no, we're going, you're going. My grandmother, she was a little bit nicer about it. She's like, no, we're gonna go, but yeah. But my dad, no, my dad he was, from how he was younger to how he was when I knew him, it just completely is different, I guess. I didn't know my dad actually danced a couple of times. I found that out. He told me later in life. He was like, yeah, I danced. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Then my grandmother danced a few times, I believe, as well. And then those are some ways that they preserve culture. And my grandmother actually told me some language that she knew how to speak fluently, but she just didn't keep it going. Because I don't know if it was like she didn't feel there was anyone who would actually care enough to know, or if she just thought to keep it to herself, but she did tell me stuff. She did teach me things. And yeah, just speaking this whole presentation to know that area can be impacted, everything, those sites, everything is like, because my biggest part of my heart is my family. And ever since I was a child, I've always been brought up with family, and family is everything. And so it's like, I'm losing a part of my family if that's gone. That's part of my life and part of my history that will be gone. But, hope that answer your question. Okay, go ahead.
With these sacred areas and lands, is there any legislative protection that you can draw from? You know, like state laws or, you know, anything like that? You can...
There are, but it's proving that it's sacred to you, and some people will argue with you that it's not, it's just a piece of place, it's whatever. Yeah, and it's fighting to prove what your feelings and what that means, and then some people are just trying to discredit you and what your feelings are. Okay. Go ahead.
My name is Stephen McNallen of the McAnallans of County Tyrone in Ireland. I am luckier than many of my other Irish brothers and sisters and my white brothers and sisters in general, in that I've been to an ancestral burial place of many centuries of my people. Cousin Brendan said to me, he said, Steve, there are not dozens of McAnallans here. He says there are hundreds, from before the famine, during the famine, afterwards. And I know how I felt about that. And I know what I would want to do if I heard that those graves were being disrupted. And I think if you can get your message before a lot of people, I think that's going to convince more people than backing and forth over water rights, land rights, X, Y, Z ad infinitum. This is from the soul, and I know I am very moved by it. And I think that, you know, the thing with white people is we all come from tribes. It's just that they're way back there. You know, my Celts are Irish, and they're German, and they're English. English and the Irish kind of do this sometimes. You know, parts of me keep wanting to go blow glory. But we need that too. If you can find a way to appeal to that need in my people, you will get support. And if there's anything I can do to help that happen, I am at your service.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you had a special name for the area where the group camp is down at the end of the road at the Bear River Park. You know where I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think we do, but I'm not sure if I can actually really totally share it. So,
Okay. Well, if you ever do.
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. But yeah.
I have an idea. You just hooked into something, sir. Actually, the Lowrys are from County Tyrone, and then yes, explains a lot.
Sure, and they've probably been in trouble together.
I don't know. I've never met anybody else from County Tyrone. That's kind of cool. But I just realized, you know what's probably $1 billion industry right now is Ancestry.com.
Yeah, DNA
23andMe. The passion that people are showing for their history. This is a wave that we can ride, I think, as Native people. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
You know, that's what I
We
love
all
about the
benefit.
cracking and relay that goes on in these things.
All of us, you know, we in effect have our intertribal things going on, but the real enemy isn't any of us. It's the system that wants to strip all of us of our heritage, all of us, to make us produce, consume, obey. And it's only by finding our respective roots, our respective clans and tribes, that we can stand together against this. I'm with you.
I'm also deeply moved by your sharing. Thank you so much. You share from the heart, and I just feel the power of it. I was at Standing Rock a while back, and I just want to say that there were a few things, many things, that really struck me. But one was the realization about white colonial settler mentality. And that, it struck me so much because I saw it in myself. And I'm married to someone who claims his Taino heritage. But there's, today I read it in something called white-splaining. You know, there are, I feel like it's so important for anyone who wants to be an ally to Indigenous people to listen, to follow the leadership of the Indigenous people who are trying to reclaim and save all of us, really. And it is easy for people to try and adopt, and I can't become an Indigenous person to this place. Yes, my ancestors were, but I can respect and I can be an ally, and I want to do that. I think another thing that was really so wonderful was pulling people together, but not being taken over, rather saying this is how we need to do this. So anyway, I also want to listen and learn and not think that I've got the answers and what we ought to do. I think it would be interesting for people who don't know about termination to know about what happened with termination. And
Boy, that's a whole entire.
Yeah, I was about to say that myself. That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, we got a whole series of panels right now running through my head. Yeah, that's right.
so I really appreciate you being here and sharing all of this. The dam is just, for me, it just can't happen.
I came here to listen and find out about the Centennial Project. I'm not very familiar with it. But what I've heard here today is a lot of really cool stories. I knew Chief Kelly. I grew up in Nevada City. We used to go pick up so many arrowheads up by the old dump up here that we'd fill up a shoebox and we'd bury them thinking we'd come back and get a treasure someday. We used to pass up the rocks. You know, they'd be out there a dime a dozen. We didn't want to carry them home, they're too heavy. But what I'm thinking is real powerful. I got Miwok blood. My dad's Ben Berry. He was a Miwok Indian around here. But we were more from the Yosemite area. I got Irish in me. So Cork County. But you know, I understand all that. But I think what I want to say here today is that some of the native blood from this area has actually gone on to create a lot of what's going on today in the environment. This part of this whole environmental film festival. We stop. The biggest thing you can do, I think, for your organization, Miwok means people. Okay, people is what it's going to take to stop this dam, save your sacred ground. People is what saved the Yuba River. It's people. You're going to have to get your message out. You're going to have to take people to your site. You know, because when we were saving the Yuba, we didn't want nobody to know about it. You know, it was like our local little treasure. You know, we didn't want to take people down there, but we had to make a choice. It's either a state park or a dam. You know, so you're going to have to get strong. You're going to have to get people together. You're going to have to get SYRCL. You're going to have to let everybody know and make a stand. You're going to have to bring all the people together, and that's it's not that hard if you put it out there. But you got to share your you know, I don't know Centennial area from nothing. I've never been over there. That's why I came here today to find out about it. But I would love to go see what it's over there. You know, and I think that's how you're going to get people to come in and help save your area, because we need to all share that and know what it's all about. And that, like I said, that's why I came here today to find out about it. But that's big. You're going to have to get people and share it. You're going to have to make that choice. Well, you know, between the sacred, of course it's sacred. But if you want to save your sacred, you're going to have to let people know it's sacred and know what it is. You know, I don't know if that's a good idea, bad idea, but that's my input.
Thank you.
Tell them about your drawing, Dennis. Tell them
Dennis
about
won't
what
say
you
this
did.
about himself, but
Because
he's the seed.
used art to save the river.
Well,
He's the seed guy.
like Native American Indians, are kind of quiet. I believe we're living in a dream. I really do. I've had experiences where woke up inside a dream and woke up in that dream saying, wow, oh, this is still a dream. I got to get back. You know, I mean, I believe this is a dream, a big dream. And I think our purpose here is to enjoy life and really live life. If I could write a book, and that would be the reason for living life is to live. You know, so while we're here, we got to live. And like I said, I don't like to talk about me, or, you know, I really don't. I like to keep going forward. But SYRCL, you know, we go way back. But the big picture with SYRCL is, you know, like Caleb, you know, he doesn't see me being active or anything in something like that. I'm quiet, but I've always been in the background, you know. And when things need to be addressed, that's what Native Americans pretty much, well, not just Native Americans, but people need to do, is stand up and be heard. That's the big part, be heard. We used to take people down to the river just to show them, just to take them up and down the rapids and get the water. The healing rocks, there's a tremendous healing rocks down there. There's 2 here in town, but the whole river is healing rocks, believe it. So I guess that's pretty much all I got to say. You just got to get the word out. You got to let people know why it's a special spot.
I was asking back there in regards to protection of sacred sites. Because Nevada City Rancheria, Colfax Taos Valley are not federally recognized tribes, there's not the state or federal, the consultation and stuff. They don't recognize that unless you're a federally recognized tribe, which we aren't. But again, that is a law and that's a process that's over there. The people who rise up and who speak their truth and then work towards that way will be heard. And so I think it was an excellent idea what the gentleman was saying is that we need to develop that strategy, we need to get moving because there is no protection for those sacred sites. I mean, traditional cultural properties, but there's a whole process there, and how long does that take, and who's in office, etc. So I just wanted to share that.
Did you want to say something?
Yeah, Shelley, I just wanted to let you know that we could go to 11:10.
Okay,
And
oh,
I'm
good,
really
thank
grateful
you.
since Tanis
Yeah,
is
because
here.
I really want Tanis to take us out.
Yeah, and I have to.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. So thank you for the time extension. We did get started a little late, so I think our timing was still perfect. So next, my next guest is Dr. Tanis Thorne, and she's going to take us back a little bit in time. How we got in this mess? I mean, are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the history. So let's hear about that, Tanis. So thank you so much.
Talk about the history of Indian water rights and try to put this into some kind of context. Thank you, Caleb, and everyone for coming together. It's so wonderful that this is interactive, and I'm happy to answer any questions at some other time, but I'm going to be very brief today. I think the situation, I mean, my heart is with the Bear River because that was my introduction, going to the Bear River campground there. And that's how I first was introduced to this beautiful country up here in the early 80s. And I fell in love with this place, and I've been here ever since when I wasn't teaching. But the situation with Indian water rights is a very grim one. My mentor called it the dark and bloody ground. It basically what we have moved from Indians being completely invisible. As Wanda said, if you're not at the table, you're the meal. But gradually into the 20th century, Indians became stakeholders. All right, so that's the general movement. I want to go back to the original water rights concepts as they were introduced into the East Coast and just enumerate these, because I do think that we're facing what is seemingly an unassailable legal situation with the NID. It's going to be a long, tough, uphill battle. But I think we can beat it because there's a lot of hope there. All right, so I'll run through these legal concepts very quickly. First of all, one of the basic ideas, water rights, is riparian or river rights, riverine rights. So if you're by a river, you have rights to that water. All right. Another important one, imported from England and English common law, beneficial use. And this is basically use it or lose it. If you have been using water and putting it to good use, you know, you have a right to it. All right. These were institutionalized in American law, but when we got to the American West and the gold rush specifically, and here in this California, in this part of the country, things changed radically because what was introduced and became a very important part of Western water rights is prior appropriation. All right? So if you claimed it first, you had it. All right? And that is the NID's grip here, because their water right claims go back to the original ditching, you know, and past the, you know, PG&E consolidation of the water system and the hydroelectric power, way back to, you know, the hydraulicking days and even further back. So they claim this right by prior appropriation, and that is an essential part of state law. All right? Then at the turn of the century, there was an important change for Native people, and that was the reserved rights concept, and that was verified in a important Supreme Court case called the Winters decision in 1908. And what it said was when the reservation system was created in this country, water rights were attached to it. And so if Indians had reservation land, they had a water right that was superior to other claimants. The key here is you have to be federally recognized and you have to have reservation land. And that's where the Nisenan are at a terrible disadvantage. Even though Indians had the reserve rights on the books and they became stakeholders and became activists in the 1920s, there's a long history of Indians speaking up and fighting for water rights. And the Bureau of Indian Affairs tried to implement its practices, its mandate to protect Indian people. Most of the trend was the other way. And one concept that was introduced that was very devastating and one that faces us now is the greatest good for the greatest number. And this is how water was taken from places like the Hetch Hetchy and the Owens River Valley and many other places because it's a numbers game. But see, this can work two ways. If we unite and we talk about that this terrible dam project, which is so misconceived, and I'm sure is aimed to enrich a few and not benefit all of us, if we can fight this, we can, I think we have some hope of challenging this. And we do have some other state and federal laws to help us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley, and thank you for putting together such a wonderful panel on short notice. It's really important what happened today. Thank you. I'll keep it brief. My name's Caleb Dardick. I'm the executive director of SYRCL, and we are working with the Nisenan tribe in a coalition called the Foothill Waters Network. And Tracy Sheehan, if you'd stand up, is our coordinator, and she has been... Tracy's a very experienced coordinator, and she is bringing more than a dozen groups together throughout Placer, Nevada County, as well as statewide and national groups, trying to bring us all together to challenge this dam. NID does want us to think this is a done deal. They're quite arrogant. They have stood right here in this room last year and said there was nothing we could do to stop it. So it's a challenge to activists. It was like the red flag. It was a very nice gift. But the internet has really given us some tools for organizing. SYRCL, we are working as community organizers, so we have created a site called damwatchdog.org. This is the way you will find out. This is the tool for communication. So if you care and don't sign up, it's really pointless. We need to not only be organized, we'll play our end of the bargain by using that website to get information out. We are looking for volunteers in both counties to really come together to unite both watersheds. So we're looking for people to table, to make phone calls, to raise money, to write comment letters, to engage with other people we haven't even thought of yet, and to build the network, because a new dam in California being proposed as a mitigation to climate change, we need to correct that. And the United States EPA just came out with a major report that said a dam should be the last option considered for water, not the first. We are nowhere near that. However, NID is moving very quickly. The draft EIR will be an administrative review, which means their staff will look at it in April. We should demand a copy then, but they will probably tell us we can't have it till July, but in July we'll have 60 days. That's summertime, people. It means you need to pay attention to your email and write a letter. That's how they play it. Having worked with government for years, it's always July, it's always December. This is not an accident. So we can't be lazy. And then we need money. We're going to need to raise, I would love to see a full-time campaigner and a staff. I think we need a significant budget for that. And we have retained the very best environmental counsel in the state of California. We have $0 to pay them. And we probably will need like $100,000 to challenge this. If we don't organize, if we don't raise money, they will approve the EIR probably in September of this year. So it's real. And then the other thing I would have to say is that this decision-making body, there are a few, but the most important is NID. In 2018, there will be 2 seats. We should be paying attention to who those 2 seats are. Are they following our will, or do we need new candidates? So, you know, at some point, we have to be real, we have to be organized, and that's what SYRCL, the role we will play with the Dam Watchdog. We will get that information to you. Thank Tom Weistar and people who are making videos, because we can tell this story. We're going to get them out, but press share, press send money. We can do this together. We have done it before with art and with passion and with love. Dennis is emblematic of that, and I can feel the power in this room. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much to all my guest speakers. Thank you for coming out at the last minute. And if you would like more information about the Nevada City Rancheria, you can check our website at nevadacityrancheria.org. And you can also check the website of our nonprofit, which is chirp.org. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate it.